Joining us on NDTV Profit right now, we have Mr. R.S. Thakur, who is the MD and CEO at Tata Autocom. Many thanks, sir, for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
It's good to be here in Pune, in fact, at your headquarters, because it's an interesting time that we find ourselves in from the point of view of the auto industry. What typically tends to take up a lot of our attention also is what the OEMs are doing in terms of either their performance financially or, of course, product-wise. But very often one tends to overlook what's happening in the component space. Let's start by talking about that. Your current, not outlook really, but where you see the industry right now, where you also see your own business right now.
The auto industry ended the year very well last year, and April was promising. May started getting a bit sluggish, and hence we are a worried lot. Because if auto industry does not do as predicted, we have got our investments, our manning, everything on those lines, then we will have to get down to doing some rethinking and restructuring, which is not an easy thing. So that's where auto industry right now really is. And I think the auto industry can't remain unaffected by the global economic scenario, which is impacting the economic scenario in India. And that's where the worry comes from right now.
And how's your performance been in this last quarter in comparison to the rest of the industry?
Last year, the auto industry grew at about 7% and we grew at 21%. So that was very satisfying. Although we had targeted to grow close to 30%, but that was on a 12% growth of auto industry. So it was very satisfying. April was equally satisfying, but now I am worried. The management team in my group of companies is already engaged in discussing as to how will we solve the situation in case we see a repeat of what happened last year during April, May, June, July.
The other cause for concern for a lot of component manufacturers is simply this, that when it comes to a crunch situation like this, the OEMs, the manufacturers themselves turn around and start to look towards you for solutions in terms of bringing down costs, because extraneous factors like input costs, etc., is something they can't control. How difficult or how much pressure does that put on you?
We are always under pressure. Actually, auto component industry in India, I think, is under pressure from both sides. OEMs being more powerful than us, and being customers are powerful. And the tier 2, tier 3 is not so well organized. So every pressure has to be borne by the tier 1 auto component vendors. I think we have, all of us, not just Tata Autocom, but all of us, have developed the art of surviving in this. And that's what has kept us going. We can't annoy the customer, so we do concede to some things. It's more in the nature of give and take. But it becomes a lot more easier if the volumes are steady and growing, because then the benefit of the volume growth can be shared and everybody's objective is met.
Do you need to necessarily then just take a long-term view always, because obviously that looks better than what's happening right now?
Absolutely. Every auto component manufacturer actually takes a view on its profitability of a project on the product life cycle. If the model is going to last for 7 years, we don't look for profit from year 1. We take it that, okay, over the 7 years, if we are going to earn enough for our shareholders, let's work on it and deliver the result for the customer and the shareholders both.
In the past decade, in fact, midway through the decade is when this was being seen as the sunshine sector, and all those lovely epitaphs were being put in with the or adjectives were being thrown in, because exports were also on the upswing. There was a lot of attention being given to the component industry by all the global manufacturers for sourcing, for operations outside of India. Now, of course, that situation changed once the global economy went through its crisis. But would you say that some of that is starting to come back, at least in terms of future growth expectation, or is it still pretty dismal when it comes to that one area?
I think it's still pretty dismal because the clouds over Europe are getting darker and darker. US has, the auto industry has come out, but it's nowhere near its zenith.
Yeah, it's also restructured itself in terms
Yeah,
of
it has
volumes.
restructured itself. So coming out or making profits is also a result of restructuring. So I don't think right now there is any, I don't see great positivity in the short to medium term.
I mean, of course, exports in general is something that I'll talk about in a bit. But the reason I asked you that is because at the time when the crisis first began, the assumption or the expectation was that there would be a lot of consolidation in this space within India. There could be some of the smaller players actually not making it through. We haven't really seen as bad a situation as that. I think domestic consumption, etc., has obviously helped. But do you think there is still room for consolidation in the space here in India?
I think some consolidation will take place, but I give credit not just to domestic consumption, but also to the very high degree of entrepreneurial capability of Indian businessmen. They can survive with a minuscule business and they can also run a giant business. So, you know, the consolidation part will happen, but I don't think as much as, my personal opinion is not as much as everybody was thinking, likening it to the Western model. I think there's a bit of a difference between the Oriental model and the Western model. Like when I was a student, we used to be told stories of small Japanese firms, you know, garage firms. Today, China is doing that. Simultaneously, they also have giant industries. So I think the Orientals have a little different approach to business than what the Western world has got.
Since you mentioned China, let me ask you this. The China juggernaut, it's what everybody looks to. It's like the sun in the solar system of the industry right now. Do you see it that way as well? Or do you think that the Indian auto component industry should be seeing it that way as well?
We fortunately have a plant in China. And what impresses me most about China is that the commitment and the productivity of the Chinese worker. Those people, their commitment and their enthusiasm, the youngsters also show it. I think that's one factor that we are missing. As far as the commodity prices are concerned globally, you know, it's almost level playing field. So what makes the difference is the cost of capital and the manpower productivity. On both, India is a bit tardy. Cost of capital is very high compared to China or any other part of the world. And manpower productivity is definitely lower than what the Chinese manpower productivity is. And I'm not talking about manpower productivity of the Chinese companies where they have dormitories where they live. In my factory, there are no dormitories, they come and work. But every time I visit and I interact with the workers, I am amazed. I mean, average age is about 23 years in our factory, and the commitment that they show is enormous.
But is that the reason why you have what we view as seems to be a shift in your strategy to say that, all right, we'll look at the export market more from the Chinese facility and not really from here in India anymore? Or is it also because the domestic consumption has gone up?
We set this up in China to export to Europe and US, basically for General Motors, but now we also supply to Ford. And we want to grow it more for supplying to the Chinese companies. Not really the Chinese, but the joint ventures there, which are definitely growing. Even the Chinese auto industry is going through a bit of a shift. The Chinese are not growing, but the joint ventures are growing. Because the Chinese people are also getting very quality conscious, the way the Indian car buyer is getting quality conscious.
Which is a shift people didn't really see coming so soon in China. Here, of course, it's heartening.
And in China, it has come because every time I visit, I meet some other component makers and others, and they share with me saying that that's what is happening, and the growth is in the joint ventures. Because the Chinese customers' expectation from the product has gone up. You know, today China is the biggest market for Jaguar Land Rover, for
pretty much everybody.
Yeah, all the premier cars, all the premier cars. So that tells you that their expectations have gone up substantially.
The point that you mentioned about improving your capability to come up to a particular level of, let's say, standard, what sort of spends are you putting into that kind of R&D or engineering? Is that a specific allocation that you look at now?
What we're doing is that our joint ventures have been there for a decade and a half. So in the joint ventures, we are expanding the scope to put up research and development facilities, so that everything doesn't get referred to the joint venture partners' home base. So that's a big development that is happening. We already have got it in.
So it'll be more than one center, you're saying?
Yeah, each joint venture will have a center for their product. So that will help us service the customers here very, very well. And also, considering that the engineering services in India are more economical than rest of the world, we will be able to provide it to the joint venture partner also. So that will strengthen our joint ventures a lot more. As far as our own business is concerned, which basically interiors and plastics, we already have got a setup where we've got 100 engineers only working on engineering part. And a few unique investments we've already made. We intend growing that. We are right now looking at as to what is the new area where we should get into fully owned. Because joint ventures now, considering that India probably is being seen as the second best destination for auto components after China, joint venture scope probably will be reducing. People would not be willing to share the rewards with someone else. They want to have it all on their own. So it's time that we also started doing something on our own.
What you just mentioned about engineering services and about how those costs still remain pretty attractive in India, that's the other big shift that happened. I mean, I remember a decade back, the component industry was literally just the component industry in the sense where you just made a part and you sold it. But the fact that now you are looking at offering a much wider range of services, which include a lot of the R&D at your end and sort of saves that cost to the OEM, how attractive does that become as a business proposition for you?
Very attractive. Very, very attractive.
Do you see that end of it growing?
We have in our own group more than 500 engineers right now providing these services across the group. That's one. Also, the attractiveness of India as a source has not really totally gone away. We have a business where we do sourcing for people in auto industry, medical equipments and aviation components out of India. I mean, we develop the source, we control the quality and we supply the parts, and it's a win-win. We make decent margin and the customers also are very happy.
And so there is obviously still, like you said, this whole disenchantment with India hasn't hit that end of.
No, I don't think it has hit yet. But I think the world is watching very closely as to how the India story will again get back on the rails.
This situation that we are finding ourselves in as a country, as an economy, most people sort of almost question how we got here in the first place, because everything seemed to be going just right and we were on the right track, and then suddenly everything seems to be falling apart now, so much so that it's no longer attractive as an investment destination. In that scenario, how important does it become to then keep the domestic end of it going, because even that seems to be faltering now for the first time? Last year that wasn't such a big problem.
A businessman has to be an optimist. Then only he can remain in business. And if we started saying that, okay, India is going to fall apart, that's not something which is a scenario that I would like to work on. But I think the scenario we would like to work on is that, okay, how long will it take for it to come back on the rails? It has to come back on the rails.
But is it more a perception issue, you think?
No, I don't think it's a perception issue. There are a few decisions which definitely need to be in place. Our economy, all the economic reforms, the financial reforms, they need to. I think it has also become a case of the government over-promising and under-delivering on the reforms. That's more disappointing, and that creates much deeper gloom than not having promised.
Yeah, I think the higher expectation is.
Yeah, when you over-promise and under-deliver, that has a far greater negative impact than not having promised and not having delivered, because you have not built up the expectations.
And now we're seeing that for the first time also affecting the auto industry because while you've and you've also had companies like Peugeot suddenly sort of changing their mind on India investment.
No, but that's also their own.
That's their own
issues,
problem
yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
In that sort of a scenario, give us a sense of where you see your own future growth coming from in the next 1 year, because most of the manufacturers seem to be putting on hold plans for expansion, new capacity, greenfield plants. We were hearing a lot of that last year. Suddenly, all that seems to have gone a little bit on the back burner.
I think the growth may not be as good as we all had planned, seeing whatever is happening, the sluggishness that I am seeing right now. But again, I think it will not be, I don't see that we will shrink.
So
We
we're
may
not
not
in a negative
grow, we
situation.
may not have the growth of the magnitude that we were thinking. And it may just be a question of time shift. Maybe I'll have that growth next year.
Two areas which I would like your thoughts on. One is the fact that there will be now an increasing number of manufacturers also installing capacity for engine manufacture in India, engine and gearbox. So that's one particular area of opportunity perhaps. And the other thing is, as you mentioned, that with each new model the market expands, and there are certain projections being, even in this sort of gloom time, there is a certain projection for how large the market will get by 2015. Where do you see Tata Autocom growing in both these areas?
That's where we are looking at that. How do we leverage the India advantage, get into businesses in which we right now are not, and which can be our own business, not joint
Anything
ventures.
specific there that you have already got your eye on?
I would not be able to put the specifics because we are working on something which we are taking to our board in a couple of months, and only when I have got the blessings of the board, then it would be well worth talking about.
The other thing which I have to ask you about is something that I know has been asked before, which is about plans for listing the company. I know this is hardly the time to be thinking about that in terms of what's happening at the markets, but long term, is that still on the anvil?
Oh yes, of course. 18 months back, we had filed our DRHP.
remember.
We paid the fees and everything. We had got the document ready. I had met all the investors. We had very positive response.
It seemed like a no-brainer at the time. I
Yeah.
remember that, yes.
Actually, we had worked very hard to make sure that we file it before the end of December 10, to make sure that we catch the market by March 11. But then various things happened, and the market kept shifting, and one could not really do it.
No, and in hindsight, I'm sure everybody will say that it was a wise decision to hold it off.
Yes, but I think today it's again a personal view that the market is moving so fast. It's 1 month it's good, next month it's bad. So a fresh issuer, if he has to wait for a couple of months for regulatory approvals, I think there is always going to be this uncertainty, because the market can change its color in those months that it takes for the regulatory approvals. So I think we will look at listing it when we see a steady market, because we would not like to list at a time when whatever the investors pay on the date of the listing, it's lower than that. That's not something which we would like to be faced with.
So you're not putting a date on it right now? Obviously.
No, we can't put a date on it, but it definitely is on the card.
Fair enough.
As a matter of fact, we are looking forward to the improved market scenario or the improved economic condition, and as soon as that happens,
We hope it happens sooner than later, but
Yes.
there was a certain amount of capital that you would have raised had you gone ahead with those plans, and I'm sure you had plans with that capital as well. So now that you didn't list at that time, has that been a setback, or have you been able to raise some of those funds from elsewhere?
we
Carry on that.
we have generated some internal funds, so a small part of it we are meeting through internal generations. But I think we are looking at some other means, if that does not happen, to raise that and move ahead, because
So is there like an internal deadline for that in your mind in terms of, all right, let's not wait for market conditions, by so and so date we must look at other options?
We are already looking at other options to fund projects. Maybe we'll get into the projects modularly instead of a big bang that we could have done if we had that kind of money.
Right. And of course, once you do list, then I'll know how large those projects are and how much those investments are. A lot easier. But give us a sense of this as well. The fact that you do have the name Tata at the start of the company letterhead, how is that an advantage, and is that also sometimes a disadvantage?
The biggest advantage is that I think it's the name which got us all the joint ventures, because it's the trustworthiness, the ethical business behavior that everybody who wanted to partner with us knew that he can trust implicitly. On the negative side, it's generally said that maybe other automakers see that we are Tata Group company, so we might give preference to Tata Motors. But those automakers who are dealing with us, they know very clearly that there is no such thing. Because if you believe that Tata is an ethical organization, then you are contradicting your own belief by saying that we will be biased towards Tata Motors. We are in this business for serving all the automakers equally, and that's what we really do.
Let me turn that around a little bit then. The fact that more than half your revenues come from Tata Motors today, do you see that scenario changing in the future? I can understand that it will remain a big chunk. But
we have debated quite a lot, and what we have concluded is that the areas in which we have Tata Motors business, it will be bad if we started losing those, because it will create an image issue. So the best way is that to keep getting more business from others, and that way balance the equation.
while holding on to this.
While holding on to all the areas of business that we have with Tata Motors for every new model that comes up, by delighting them. And similarly, by delighting other than Tata Motor customers, getting more and more business from them.
So I think the clarification that our viewers will also be interested in is knowing that it's not as if you get that by default. You have to still sort of fight for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you walk across many Tata offices, you might find that not all of them have got Voltas air conditioner. I wouldn't like to say anything more than that. So that really tells you that in the Tata Group, there is no mandated thing that you have to buy from so and so. It's quality cost delivery, and it's pure business decision, because the shareholder population for each company is different. And each company takes care of their own shareholders' interest. So what is best for Tata Motors will do. What is best for Tata Autocomp will do. So that's how it goes.
All right, so what I was trying to get at was, is there a specific area where you feel that's the area where you need to strengthen yourselves? Either it's a specific component space or something to do with engineering services, which is the area where...
We would like
matter.
to do in the component space, because that's our core business. And we always debate, okay, what will the future, the car of the future need? And what are the gaps that exist in those? So we are continuously scanning that space and looking for opportunities there.
Electric cars, hybrid cars, is that a feasible business area for you to consider, given how slow India is moving?
We were very seriously working on electric cars. We actually had an MOU with someone. We still have the MOU valid. But I think even conventional internal combustion engine vehicles, even there are lots of opportunities for the future cars. More and more of electronics will come in, more and more of safety will come in. The way the pollution norms got dictated by courts, I think even safety will have to get dictated. You can't afford the number of deaths that are taking place on the roads. These plus, like you said earlier, that the engine manufacturing will go up here. So, fuel efficiency, better engines, lighter engines, engine components. So all these are continuously being examined by us as to, okay, so where is it that we can find space and make sense for everybody?
So even if I was to discount the fact that you've told me you're already optimistic, or you're an optimistic person,
every businessman has to be an optimist.
The future still looks bright.
Yes.
All right, that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.